Hello, I'm Tom. I'm one of the wellbeing coaches at Isorropia, and I'd like to look at the pitfalls of perfectionism. I must admit that perfectionism is something I've struggled with for pretty much most of my life. I can't begin to count the number of times people have said to me, "Tom, you're such a perfectionist, give yourself a break once in a while." Well, perfectionism is kind of a belief system that says human beings should strive for perfection, or that they've already achieved perfection, and that we should all be working towards that. It's a way of setting very, very high standards for ourselves, combined with a very harsh self-critical evaluation of how we think we're doing, and then being really concerned and really bothered by what other people are thinking of us. Are they noticing our flaws? Do they think we're perfect? So this combines to become what is considered a maladaptive form of perfectionism. We set ourselves these unattainable goals that are totally unrealistic, and then when we don't manage to reach them, we get very anxious about it. Maybe others have noticed that we're imperfect, or we get very depressed that we haven't achieved these incredibly high standards that are almost inhumanly impossible to achieve, and then we get very down and really deflated about it. Some people do use the term perfectionist when what they actually mean is people who set themselves goals and then get a sense of pleasure and fulfillment out of achieving them. Nothing wrong with that. That's all very healthy. What I'm trying to look at this moment is the perfectionistic mindset, where unless it's absolutely immaculate what you've achieved, where you can't pick a single hole in it, where you can't find a single thing to criticize, and unless it's that sort of standard, it's not good enough. Perfectionistic thinking can also be related to things like black and white thinking. So unless the job I've done is absolutely perfect, it's not good enough and it's a failure. Unless anything less than total perfection is a failure, an absolute disaster. Also, if I need help with this, I must be a weak person. Or I really shouldn't have to ask for help with this, I should have sorted this out by now. Putting these kind of strong demands on ourselves all the time. It can also be related to catastrophizing, or what's called catastrophic thinking. If I make a mistake in front of my colleagues, I won't be able to hold down the humiliation. I can't cope with someone being upset or cross with me. Like everything's the end of the world unless everything's perfect. This is where it goes wrong. Or overestimating the probabilities of a situation. Oh dear, I made a mess of that report at work. I'm so going to get fired over this. Or I'm not well, I'm going to have to phone in sick. Oh no, they'll think I'm lazy. This is the end of the world as well. That kind of thing. Overestimating the probability of outcomes. And for those of us that suffer with this perfectionistic mindset, we can sometimes rely so much on should statements. Sentences with should in it, or must, or ought. These strong statements. I should never make mistakes. I should have done better at that. I should never look anxious or nervous in front of people. I should have been able to predict that problem before it occurred. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, so why am I putting that kind of pressure on myself? How does perfectionism come about? Well, it's normally a combination of factors rather than one in particular. But it can be related to things like, if the parenting you've grown up with was hypercritical, with rigid high parental standards, or shaming or abusive parenting. The other thing is, it could be the flip side. Excessive praise all the time can also lead to this demand for perfection in ourselves, where we're trying to respond to that. If we only get praise when we're excellent, then we better be excellent all the time. Or it comes along with a sense of low self-esteem and somehow feeling inadequate. Sometimes when we're growing up and we somehow feel less than our peers or inadequate within the peer group, we can then learn the perfectionism to almost overcompensate, trying to maintain this sense of superiority over our circumstances or our peer group. People also adopt this perfectionistic mindset for trying to find order in chaos, trying to find comfort in an ordered situation where everything is right, everything is in its place, absolutely immaculate. This strong need to get it right that we have. The problem with that is it can really interfere with our ability to have healthy human relationships. Or we might miss out on opportunities in life because we hold ourselves back thinking we're not going to be perfect, therefore we're not even going to try, we're not even going to attempt that. Because if there's even a slight flaw in it and not the best it could possibly be, then why would I even try? Because I might be a failure. That's in our own minds, according to our own perfectionistic judgments. So what are the clues that suggest that you might have a perfectionistic mindset? Well, maybe you always have this concept, that you always fail at everything you try. Very harsh self-judgment there. Or you procrastinate regularly, keep putting things off because you fear it won't be right and say, oh, well, I'll do that later. While in the back of your mind, the fear that's running in the background is the thought, because it won't be perfect. Or we might struggle to relax. We're always on this kind of high alert, a state where everything has to be perfect all the time. It's very tiring and very draining. So when I find it hard to wind down and find the moment to relax, or it's difficult for us to share our thoughts and feelings with others, because if we want to be open and honest, it would mean saying, I'm afraid I might fail at that, or I might need some help with that, or I feel I don't fully understand that. Hard to get those kind of words out when perfectionism is running in the back of the mind. Also, we might fall into the trap of being very controlling in our personal or professional relationships. Because we want everything to be perfect all the time, we start to make very high demands of others as well as of ourselves. Maybe we become obsessed about rules, lists, and our work and our roles in the situation. On the flip side, we might become extremely apathetic. Why would I bother with anything? Because it's never going to be perfect. Then we kind of give up. So what can we do to challenge these perfectionistic tendencies that we might have? Firstly, set ourselves realistic and attainable goals. Or when we set ourselves a very high demanding goal that might take a long time to achieve, break it down so it's in its component parts, so we can focus on that one activity at that moment in time. We can acknowledge that everyone makes mistakes. That's part of the human condition, part of the human experience. It's what makes us people rather than demigods bestriding the earth. We can recognise that most mistakes present a learning opportunity, a chance to improve on something. It doesn't mean that you're unworthy or useless as an individual just because an error occurred. It means that you didn't get it right that time, but you can always have another stab. Confront our fears about the possible outcomes. Be realistic about what the possible outcome might be. If I don't get this right, I can always try it again. Rather than, if I don't get this right, it's an absolute disaster. Look for the positives in yourself. Nothing wrong with that. Instead of dwelling on the negatives and getting into that hyper self-critical mindset, focus on the positives. And also looking for the good in others. Love yourself in your entirety. That I do find very hard. Loving yourself in entirety means loving your imperfections as well. It's kind of what makes you you. It doesn't mean you're unworthy or a bad person simply because you have some imperfections. If minor imperfections or a flaw does not make you a bad or unworthy person. It's simply about having a balanced perspective of who you are as an individual. And as an individual, you can embrace that uniqueness. Many people throughout history achieved great things precisely because they were unique and different. If we can, avoid procrastination. If we wait forever for the perfect moment to do something, we could kind of wait forever. We will feel empowered simply by taking action. We'll be getting more done. You'll be participating more in life because you've let go of that need for it to be perfect first time, which is so unrealistic. We can reset our minds to think of mistakes not as failings but as lessons. It's an opportunity to learn, so we allow ourselves to make mistakes and then handle any criticism as a positive rather than a negative thing. I must admit I'm still struggling with that one myself, but I know that's a learning point for me. And let's be honest, it's hard work to change the way we do things and face our fears. But when we do, we can always reward ourselves. It's good to give yourself a little treat for the effort you've made. So am I perfect? No. Do I still suffer with perfectionism? Oh yes. You wouldn't believe how many times I restart recording these videos. But I do try to be the best me I can be. Sometimes. And that's great. Please remember, no one has to be perfect for all of us at Isorropia to say, you've got this, and we got you. See you again soon.